long should a blog post be? Is long-form content better? Should you be writing thousands of words? Or a short, to-the-point post better? That's the topic of today's Blogcentric podcast. Welcome to Spiderworking's Blogcentric podcast, a podcast about blogging. Hello and welcome to episode 56 of the Blogcentric podcast. I'm Amanda Webb and you'll find the show notes for today at spiderworking.com/56. And today I'm going to attempt to answer the question, how long should a blog post be? And I wanted to cover this topic because I've been reading a lot of information on the internet saying longer is better. I've also noticed my own blog posts are getting longer. My content's getting more in depth, so the word count is going up. Is that a good thing? You're listening to Blogcentric from Spiderworking. I want to talk to you about two people today. The first one, you've probably heard of him, is Neil Patel. Neil Patel is an internet marketing genius. He writes long, in-depth posts about all things digital marketing, and they're like mini training courses. They take a while to read. You learn loads. You learn lots of processes. You learn lots of tools. And all of it could really help you benefit your business. But they are long. Like very, very long. Then we have Seth Godin. Seth Godin, he is a marketing genius. In fact, the way people speak about him, you think he's royalty. Seth publishes to his blog every single day. And his posts often don't even reach 100 words. But they still get shared widely online and people consider his word as gospel. He's one of the few people in the marketing world who you call by his first name and people know who you're talking about. Seth. In recent years, there's been a trend towards longer written content. Studies continuously show us that posts over 1,000 words do better. They get more shares, they get more inbound links, they rank better in search. Unsurprisingly, bloggers jump on this trend because it's so hard to rank amongst the thousands of other posts online that anything that's going to give us an extra advantage is a bonus. My first blog post was 79 words long. Now I can write up to 2,500 words. Not every post, but some of them hit that. Is this good? Let's have a look at the statistics. I looked at two reports recently. Firstly, there's Track Maven's report just out. It's a 2016 report. Confusingly, they've called it the 2017 blogging report. But it's good information. And in there, it says that posts between 1,200 words and 1,400 words get the most shares on social media. And then I looked at a HubSpot report and they analysed a whole bundle of their own blog posts. This one's from 2015. I'll link to both of these in the show notes, by the way. And this says even longer posts are better. They found that posts over 2,500 words got the most shares, the most inbound links. But posts between 2,250 words and 2,500 words ranked better in search. Even anecdotally, when I ask people tell me that it's their long posts on their website that do better. The statistics don't lie. But I wonder, are we missing something? I think so. It can be easy to get caught up in those statistics. It can be easy to get caught up in reports and algorithms and forget about the most important people, our readers. Both Neil and Seth have very different online personas, and maybe their readers are the same, but they get different things from different people. Seth has a very, very loyal audience. They're going to pay attention to every word he says, and they spread the word. They share his content every single day. They're loyal. And Neil, he's really well known for his in-depth, valuable content, his knowledge that he gives us that we can learn from. For me, I think neither is better. The length of their content represents them as a brand, their online persona. It speaks to their readers. It's what defines them. And of course, it's the reader that should be at the heart of our decision making as well.
You're listening to Blogcentric from Spiderworking.
So what's the problem with this long content? Why am I questioning it? As you can probably tell, I am a Neil Patel fan, but I rarely read his content. Why is that? Well, when I see his posts pop up in my feed, I know they need time investment. They need my full attention. And it's rare that I have time to give it. So I scroll past. All Neil's posts, in case you missed it, are very, very long. And he blogs a lot. And it's not just me. When I mention Neil Patel to other people, if they've heard of him, the reaction's almost always the same. They sigh. They sigh because they can't keep up with his content either. Many of us relegate his posts to a saved folder, either on Facebook, in our email, using something like Pocket, and we never really get round to accessing them, even if we intend to. Now, if I was Neil, I'd be devastated that so many of the people I wanted to reach weren't actually reading. All those shares, all those inbound links, they're great brand awareness. But what's that worth when people don't even want to click the link to read the post, to learn more, to travel further, to sign up to your list, to buy something? Even when people click through, they don't want to read it all. So if you can convince people, if you haven't put them off with your really long content and you can get them to click through, lots of them are just going to scroll past. You know, all those words that you've lost sleep over, that you've sweated over, lots of them aren't even reading them. They're just scrolling on by. When I asked my non-marketing friends on Facebook, just, members of the public that weren't involved in the marketing industry at all, many of them admitted that they just skip through the long content. Those who would stay and read the whole post would wait until they were in the right environment. So they would save it for later, and yes, some of them would read it. One person actually printed it off if they found something they really want to read, so that he could read it on his commute. Interesting. The overall comment from my non-marketing friends on Facebook was that if the long-form content was academic or something they could learn from, they'd read it on their phone, on their computer, on the train. But for opinion pieces, they'd expect shorter posts. In fact, they said they felt opinion pieces were babbling on if they were long. So if we're going to write longer posts, I think we need to consider when we publish and when we promote them. Could capturing someone who wakes up early on a Saturday morning be the right time to promote our longer pieces of content? Could commuter time be the best time? If people are reading them on the train, when they've got limited Wi-Fi or internet access, that's a good time to capture them because they're not going to be able to watch the video. I think it's definitely worth experimenting with times to see if people stay on your posts longer at those times of day. And of course, those times of day or times of the week will really be dependent on your audience. A comment that came up when I asked my Facebook group, so these are small business bloggers in this group, was that subheadings, images, bullet points, all the stuff that we discussed on this podcast when we talked about layout, and I'll link to that episode in the show notes. All that stuff was important because they'd have a scroll through, they'd have a look, maybe a subheading would capture their attention, maybe it would be a photo. If you write an epic post, having all that stuff gives people a chance to scroll through to the bit that matters to them, the bit they want to read. You know what else? Long content can scare people off. Let's think about video content for a moment. When you see a video online, not one that you've necessarily searched for, but you just, it pops up on your social media or something. When you see a video, what's the first thing you look at before you click the play button? Is it the time to see how long it's going to play? Do you want to see how much time you want to commit before you hit play? If the answer to that is yes, you are not alone. I do it. I've asked other people, they do it too. Because we have time for short video. But unless the video is answering a specific question or it's a tutorial perhaps, something you've searched for, or if it's not scheduled, so something like Facebook Live long videos do well because people schedule that time. They think about that time in advance. Unless it's one of those things, people will turn off if it's a long video. And in some ways, videos similar to written content both require our full attention. One thing you could try is if you write a longer post, you could put estimated reading time at the top of the post. Now, I've done this in the past and I really like the idea. I've kind of fallen out of the habit and I haven't done any analysis on how it's worked yet. But I like it because if I land on a post, Moz do it as well. When I land on a post and it will say it's going to take me 5 minutes to read, knowing that that's all the commitment that's required might encourage me to read on. Actually, will encourage me to read on. I was using a tool called Word Counter to get the estimated reading time for my text, and I'll link to that in the show notes.
You're listening to Blogcentric from Spiderworking.
Finally, on the disadvantages of long-form content is that you may, if you're trying to achieve your 1,500 word count, end up stuffing it with irrelevance. The problem with any algorithm is that we're tempted to hack it. Yes, it seems that Google are favouring longer content at the moment, but that doesn't mean we should give in to temptation and stuff all our content with extra words, irrelevancies. We shouldn't go off topic, go over the top with detail, overextend our writing just so that we hit the 1,500 mark. Because search engines are clever. They'll become wise to this. They use other signals as well to understand if our posts are valuable and useful. For example, if a user bounces back to Google immediately after clicking a search result, that tells Google that that search result wasn't necessarily relevant. If that happens too much, you're just going to plunge down the search rankings. Some blog posts just don't need to be 1,500 words. If all you're creating is long-form posts, and if you're creating them frequently, you might find that a lot of your audience is switching off. But this doesn't mean you shouldn't write them. Okay, let's talk about short posts now. Shorter, snackable posts can work well, particularly if you're targeting a time-poor audience who want to be entertained or learn something quickly and easily. If you post regular, shorter content, that could be the key to keep people coming back and reading more frequently. I don't think there's anyone in this world that doesn't have time to read Seth Godin's short-form content every single day. People do. They're committed to him. It can work. You're also unlikely to scare people off when they arrive on the site and they realise it's just a short post. Sure, they're going to read it. But there is a downside. In a short post, 300 words to 500 words, you don't really have an opportunity to be in-depth, to focus your audience attention. And you want that. You want people's attention to be on you and your brand so they remember you. Because of this, when you're writing shorter posts, you need to work on making them memorable. Focus them on one key thing that's going to stay in the mind of your audience long after they finish reading. So how long should blog posts be? The answer is, and you might not like this, you might think it's a cop-out. The answer is a blog post should be as long as it needs to be. However, I would recommend varying the length of your content. Have some really detailed, in-depth posts in your content schedule, but they don't need to be that frequent. Once a month might be good enough. And the rest of your posts, make them shorter. Yoast suggests that posts should be at least 300 words long to give Google or other search engines enough to crawl. But once you're over that, sure, it doesn't matter.
You're listening to Blogcentric from Spiderworking.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Blogcentric podcast. What I'd like you to do, your blogging challenge this week, is to go to Word Counter. And again, I will leave the link to that in the show notes. And the show notes are at spiderworking.com/56. If you go to Word Counter and just paste in the words, the text from your latest blog post and see how many words long it was. And then have a look at the estimated reading time. When you post that blog post, when you share it, do your audience have time to read it? And then I'd like you to think about what I'm calling in my 2017 strategy, cornerstone content. Really big, chunky bits of content that you could write either once a month or once a quarter that are really going to be the ones that help you appear in search engine results, but are also educational and entertaining to your reader. That's all for me for this week. But before you go, you know what I'm going to say, don't you? I'm going to ask you a favour. I would love it. Actually, consider it an early Christmas present. I would love it if you went over to iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you listen to this, and you left me a review. Because when people see good reviews for podcasts, they're more likely to subscribe. I know I look at the reviews before I hit the subscribe button. That means more people start listening. That means I want to keep podcasting. And you'll feel really good. And you know what happens when you do something nice for people? Something nice might happen in return. Until next week, happy blogging.
Blogcentric from Spiderworking is sponsored by We Teach Social, social media e-learning courses for small business. Find out more at weteachsocial.com.